Excellent.
Well, welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Reuven, Hampshire.
Hello.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, man.
Um, 24-year-old, live in Cornwall, England, and absolutely love wildlife and rock pooling, basically.
Okay, hold on. What's rock pooling?
Rock pooling is going to the beach. You've got rocky areas, and when the tide goes out, they hold the water and they're full of life. So checking through all of those.
Wait, so you're like building like a kind of like as like a if you ever make like a I guess a civilization game like the island games where you have to go on a getaway, you get to put like rocks in a circle and then when the water recedes, it keeps all that water in there?
No, the rocks are already there. They're the exposed rocks on the beach. Not every beach has rock pools, but beaches with like falling cliffs and stuff, you'll
I
almost definitely find rock pools there.
I immediately started thinking of like, you ever play the island games? Like you get lost on an island and you have to build your own like fish, whatever, or whatever the
Yeah.
thing is, aquarium. So they put rocks
No.
in a circle and they put water in it. I tried that as a kid, didn't fucking work because the rocks had little holes that the water would just come out.
Yes, it's not as survivalist as that.
So when you're saying enjoying nature, now what exactly do you enjoy by nature?
Basically, just the living things that you find. I mean, it's so exciting to go about at these locations where a lot of people feel like maybe there's not very interesting stuff about. But I mean, British rock pools, you have loads of what would appear to be to sort of people who don't look into this, quite exotic species, quite exciting species of animal, whether they're like invertebrates or vertebrates. So like you've got tons of crabs, prawns, all sorts of crustaceans, all sorts of annelids, which are all worms and stuff, and then tons of fish as well. So it's a really diverse, crazy ecosystem.
I think this is like really surprising. And the only reason I'm so interested in this is the fact of I don't think I've ever met a person that's our age in our 20s that is interested in actually going outside and exploring what we would call nature. It seems like with this new generation and all these kids that are coming up now, they're really about the cell phones. Nobody's really going out to experience the world anymore. Um,
Hmm.
Virtual realities is far. I mean, if you want to play Fortnite, you could probably get a nice. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Minecraft does a pretty damn good job of giving you the tools to, I would say, build a little island compared to maybe when I was a kid trying to do it with sticks and duct tape was a bit
Yeah,
of
of
a
course, and
pain
you
in
can
the
build
ass.
rafts and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just something enjoyed about it. Like, I mean, where did the inspiration start for you? Because I know my nature kind of just fascination came for when I went camping all the time as a little kid.
Yeah, so I mean, living in Cornwall, we're a pretty secluded area of England, and we're on a peninsula, absolutely surrounded by the sea, and not very densely populated. So it's just there. There's always access to it, and I think that's a big part of it. Is sort of even you just like take a 5-minute walk out of where I grew up, my house, you'd be on these old railway tracks and there'd be no one around, and there'd be loads of nature, birds singing, deer running around. So it was a really crazy, really exciting place to grow up. And again, sort of, you got the seaside right there, you've got beaches right there. And if you're going to the beach as a kid a lot, one of the activities you can get into definitely is rock pooling.
I live right by the beach. I've spent my whole life here, and I guess what you would say is I want a change of scenery, mostly
Mm.
because I feel like once you're influenced by it so much, like all around it all the time, you just really want a change of things. Like I think one of my best trips I've ever been on. I'm going to ask you this too. I've been to Hawaii, which is nice, but Vegas, man. I don't know what it is. Not really the actual part of Vegas, but more like going to go see the Grand Canyon. Like I took this trip with my grandparents and you have to take a very, very shitty school bus all the way up this mountain where you're like side by side to people where it's like I don't have any room. Like I wish I got my like 2 seats so I could actually have some room. And I remember this dude fell asleep on my shoulder. My grandma was videotaping it, laughing her ass off. And then I finally just got some sleep. I mean, just put my head on the window, started to conk out a little bit because all you're seeing is rocks after a while. I mean, you're 3 hours on a regular double decker bus, which is fun as hell. You're driving, they're pointing out all the like the cactuses, like that's Joshua Tree, is all these cool names for cactuses. But then you get this crappy rundown bus actually in the Grand Canyon going up the mountain, and I have my head on the window, and we hit a giant bump, and my head goes back and slams right against the glass, dude. And I'm like, like it'll wake you up, but dude, that whole like 4 hour, 5 hour trip just to get to the Grand Canyon, way worth it once you get there. I mean, we were there for an hour, but you look at it, you're like, wow, like this is a miracle. Like, this is something that's like, it's just unexplainable. I don't know if you've ever came across an unexplainable beauty before.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely have. I mean, my best traveling experience was going to America with my partner when I was 20. So I basically worked loads, saved up loads of money. We went across to America for 2 months. And yeah, started on the East Coast, did New York, the city, which I wasn't initially excited about because, like I said, I'm a pretty like nature person, like to be out there in nature. But it was just such an amazing change of scenery because I'd never been around so many skyscrapers like that, so many hustling, bustling people, so it's absolutely nuts. Went to Niagara Falls, almost got that one wrong. Yeah, then sort of all over the place on the East Coast. Then went over to California for a month and rented a van and we drove up and down the state. And yeah, Death Valley definitely was just, I was in awe going to, I don't know if you've ever been to Death Valley, but Dante's Viewpoint, I think it's 5,000 foot elevation. You can see the whole of Death Valley and it's just unbelievable.
What's your typical like best scenario, like when it comes to, if I was going to give you like $1 million to go anywhere you want and do whatever you wanted, what would you do with the $1 million and where would you go? Because like everyone always goes, I want to buy a McLaren, I want to buy a Lamborghini. I'm like, I want a log cabin in the middle of the woods with good internet, and I can just do this all freaking day. And I don't want anybody
Hmm.
bothering me. I want a little stream that I can walk out with like a stick and a string and just try and fake fish for like, I guess, to make myself feel better. I mean, you talk about loving invertebrates or loving these little like creatures that you get to see in the water when you're rock pooling. I love shrimp. I love watching them in the little tank and floating around. There's a blue lobster at my Petco, and every time I walk by, I'm always staring at it for like an hour and a half. And everyone's like, Robbie, move along. I'm like, it's a lobster and it's blue. What the fuck else do you want out of life? Like, this is it.
Yeah, man. Like prawns, I think are some of the best characters of a rock pool. Definitely, like they're really inquisitive, really exciting, and that's one of the great things you get onto a rock pool. And there's just like, yeah, loads of prawns kicking about. I love that. But yeah, if you gave me a chunk of money and I could go anywhere, do anything, I'd probably. This is a shared dream and passion with my partner. We'd go to Hawaii, and yeah, definitely set up on a beach there somewhere, do a bit
Have,
of snorkeling.
have you ever been to Hawaii before, or is that just one
I
of the dream
haven't, no.
locations?
That's a dream location. So we planned out. We were going to go for 3 months to America, and Hawaii was definitely going to be in there. But about a month before we left, found out my partner was pregnant, so we had to cut it short by a month, and ended up sort of shaving off the Hawaii section, what would have been of our trip. So ended it in California, but really want to go to Hawaii sometime in the future.
You're better than most people, because every time I've ever been on a plane ride, there's always a baby on there and just starts screaming. I'm like, who the hell brought a 1 month old on this plane? Like, are you like, oh, his ears just popped. I'm like, his brain's about to explode. We're like 50,000 feet in the air. Like, I hate planes, not because I saw snakes on a plane when I was a kid, and not because I'm afraid of heights. I like the whole looking up at the clouds. I think that's beautiful. But I went to a 12-hour plane ride on going to Hawaii, and I was at the very, very back of the plane. And then the woman was like, "Oh, you don't have any overhead storage spot." And I'm like, "What do you mean? There's a thing right here." She goes, "No, that's where we keep the oxygen tanks." I'm like, "What oxygen tank?" She goes, "The one that's fueling the whole plane." I was like, "So there's oxygen tanks that are keeping everybody alive on the front, basically above my head right now." She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What happens if that explodes?" She's like, "Don't think about that." I was like, now I'm gonna think about it for the next 12 hours.
We went to India when our eldest was 5 months old, and yeah, that was taking a 5 month old on a plane. That was an experience, especially like waiting in airports and stuff. Like we stopped off in Bahrain, insanely hot country, especially like I mean we were there in January, but it's pretty close to the equator. So yeah, that was. I wouldn't take a baby on a plane ever again. Definitely waiting until they're both older before we go on holiday again.
When you travel, what do you consider the worst part? Do you consider the journey up there, or I feel like it's also the plane ride or the journey back, but I feel like airports are the biggest thing for me. I've never had a very great experience at an airport, mostly layover times, but I got pulled over by TSA and not strip checked, like hand up the butt or anything, but more like patting down. Dog came out because my cousin's a diabetic and he had his needles in my bag and I didn't know. So they're like, why you got all these needles in here? I'm like, my cousin's a diabetic. And they're like, shouldn't he be carrying the needles? I'm like, I'm not a heroin user, man. Like, don't need to jump on me. And I start itching real bad, freaking guys staring at me.
Yeah, man. I'd say the worst part of going away is probably like the week before I actually go away. I mean, I've got diabetes, got type 1 diabetes, so I've got I've got other allergies as well. So I'm allergic to some foods. I'm allergic to nuts. So before I go away, there's often like this real thing that, have I got all the medication I need? And oh God, what if I die in the country and stuff like that? So it's like, it's just the build up to it. It's probably the worst thing, where I get really stressed out really easily. But like, I think the second we actually set off, I don't mind airports. In America, we went to maybe like 6 airports, one of which LAX, which was hot on security. I got patted down pretty much every airport, like you said, because I had needles on my
Yeah,
person. I
you
had
carry your own needles
inhalers.
if we're riding together. That ain't happening
Yeah,
to me. I've never been
yeah.
so scared in my entire life. I had a thing of goldfish crackers and needles in my backpack. I had no clue was in there.
It wasn't quite that bad. Although I didn't have any proof I was diabetic. I just like, well, I've got all the medication. Why else would I have it? So
I look at like a dream location and I'm like, I feel like besides, if I had $1 million and I built like a log cabin somewhere, Alaska seems like a pretty amazing place. I mean, they give you like $1,000 just for moving there because the oil companies just ravaging the nation's natural beauty. But I feel like I'm not a fan of the cold, but I prefer that over being super hot, I guess. But I mean, it's just interesting, like to see a whole different change of scenery than the beach scenery I've been seeing every single day. I'm like, I want mountains. I want, like, when I go up to Pennsylvania and there's mountains up there and you're going, like, I'm going snowboarding or something. It's just freaking amazing. Like, I'm like, this is a whole different climate. It's harder to breathe. I feel like somebody's sitting on my chest. This is awesome.
yeah, man. We've not got any mountains where we live, so definitely going and seeing mountains, absolutely amazing. And like massive lakes. I remember when we went to Lake Michigan, we just looks like the ocean. Unbelievable that it's a lake. So yeah, there's a lot to go and see that's very different to where we live. But I think one of the benefits to where we live in Cornwall, because there's so much coast, and there are so many small areas, like the town that we live in, it's technically it's its own microclimate. So you travel like 20 minutes away and it does feel like a different place. You've got old mining country. There's a lot of heritage to Cornwall. So there's a lot of historical things to go and view. You've got loads of areas you can go for natural beauty, whether that be like woodlands, moors. You've got, like I said, tons of beaches, and so many beaches are so individual and they're all just really accessible.
Have you ever seen the movie Jumper?
I have, yeah.
I wish I had that superpower, dude. But I wish I could
Yes.
also time travel with it, like jump to a certain point in history, because I would love to go to like ancient Greece and all these other types of places where like Greek mythology was super big. I'm really fascinated to that old school style of history. And I would love to see just the nations of the sword battles, get to really experience what was going on in the minds of some of these. Like, I mean, that was where I guess initial knowledge really came from, was Greece and all these types of amazing things that we use today with math, reading. I mean, that's just, to me, that's inspiring. Seeing these amazing statues being built would be something I would really love to see. But if I had to ask you, what would be, I would say, your worst travel experience?
Worst travel experience.
You got to have one.
Well,
I mean, I went to, what do you call it? All right, hold on a second. I got to double think on this one because I've had a few really bad ones, but which one's worse than the first? If you got an answer, you go ahead.
oh man, I definitely have an answer. And actually, my worst travel experience was on the best trip of my life, which was my 2 months traveling away in America. Like I said, was out there with my pregnant partner. We rented this van that was insured on road, but you couldn't go off road. And it was like the description of off road was basically like anything that's not a paved road. And we pulled over in this national forest. And God, I can't remember what national forest it was, but it was this place called Rattlesnake Den. It was in California. And we pulled off the road, and there's this little flat patch, hard patch for us to camp on. And we were like, excellent. Look down the way, and there's another little gravel lane. And we're kind of umming and ahhing about it because, do we go down there and risk the insurance, all this sort of stuff? So anyway, we drove down there because it's a bit further away from the road, and we didn't want to get woken up by traffic in the night. And we pull up next to another car, which is why I thought it would probably be safe. We hopped out of the car, and further along still, there was like this clearing in the trees, and just the most bizarre setup. There was a smashed TV, and there was a cow skin, no cow skin, and all of the offal, all the guts, like the tongue laid out. It looked like weird ritualistic sort of stuff, and we were definitely in the hills, you know.
That's
So,
what we call a Papa John's satanic cult.
oh my god, it was terrifying. So obviously we're like, let's get out of here, hop in the van, go to pull away, rear wheel drive, rear wheels are in the mud, and the van was stuck. Sun was going down, we're right next to this river and stuff. I'm there like looking for gravel, looking for like bark chips, anything to stick under the tires to try and get us out. It's just not working. So my partner was just like, you've killed us, we're done. The sun goes down, we're in bear country, we're just gonna die. So it definitely wasn't a very exciting experience. So in those terms, it was pretty gut sinking. And I went up to the road, waited by the road for like 20 minutes, just waiting for a car to come by, and nothing came by.
You would
Went back
let a
down to my
hitchhiker
partner.
pick you up, first of all? That is the biggest mistake ever. That's how every serial killer movie gets
Well, yeah,
started.
it was either die there or die in a nice warm car. So what are you going to choose? Anyway, my partner decided to go up to the road, and within about 15 minutes, someone saw her, pulled over. This bloke called Mark, just an absolute legend. He was like a carpenter, something like a tradesman who just happened to have the right tools in the back of his van, and he had a couple of ratchet straps. Hooked us up at the ratchet straps, got us attached to a tree, and just hoisted us out of this out of the mud. And we drove off, and we didn't even realize on the day it was the 14th of February. It was Valentine's Day, and he was like, "Oh, my wife's going to kill me. You know, I'm going to be late for dinner," and off he drove. But
I would have been like,
you
tell her
know,
you just saved two people's
yeah,
lives.
I was like, thank God for people like Mark. You know.
I think my worst trip would have to probably be the second time I went to Hawaii. Um, a lot had changed. This is why I'm a big person on like conservation of things. Mostly the airport was a pain in the ass. I mean, we knew it's 11-hour flight, so it's gonna be fun on the way. I guess once we get there, and then on the way back, it's gonna suck. You got that whole plane ride. Like, can't believe we got to return back home. But I remember like it had its good and its bad moments. So my grandfather is very funny with anytime we go into TSA because he fought in NAM and also believes he doesn't have to take his shoes off for anything. So he had to take his shoes off, and the whole time I'm just seeing him going, mother, and just cussing really out loud in TSA line. And I'm like, oh my God. And we're just trying to get through. And he's like about to walk into the metal detector. He walks through, beeps. He has to come back, take his belt off, and take his watch and do all this stuff. I'm like, you're supposed to take all that off, man. He walks in again. He starts beeping and he goes, now what the fuck? And I'm like, oh God. And my grandmom's just like walking straight to where we're supposed to go for our airplane ride or whatever. And they start scanning him, and they scan up near his head, and it starts beeping. And he goes, oh, it must be the metal plate I have in my head. And they're like, oh, okay, go on through. And then he's like putting his shoes back on. He's like, I hate this shit. And I'm like, dude, let's just go. And he goes, I don't even have a metal plate in my head. I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm just like, so there's just something inside of your head that's metal that nobody knows about. He goes, I got hit in the head with a nail gun when I was a kid. It could be that. I'm like, Jesus. But what really kind of made the trip kind of sucky was that since it was our second time there, when we went back to the hotel we stayed at the first time, and this had been a couple of years, a gap in between, me and my brother knew the way to get to the beach. We knew the path we took last time, and we took that path. And the coolest part was there was a small little market in between these hotels that you wouldn't really know about unless you were just walking and stumbled across it. Had parrots, had a little koi pond, everything. Completely torn down, and it was turned into another like store or hotel building slash thing. Like it was only like a store, like 1 story high, but it had a bunch of little market stuff in there. Completely gone. But that was like an unknown treasure to us, was to have that there. So it really sucked watching that kind of change and started to take out kind of the beauty parts of nature and everything. And then they had this hotel that had penguins. That was gone too. They took out the penguins and they made an expanded part that was like a beach party type thing. I was like, that kind of sucks. And then we ended up going to this place called Dole Plantation, which is, do you know Dole pineapples? Well, it's the largest pineapple like plantation ever, and it takes 48 months to grow those things. I didn't know that.
Wow,
But yeah, for a fucking pineapple, think how easily we eat those. Oh my god.
that's mad.
But it had this one maze, and we ended up me and my grandpa got stuck in the maze, and he just started screaming, yelling, "You wanted to go in the fucking maze, and now we don't know how to get out." I'm like, "This is a child's maze. Can you believe we're stuck in this?" He's like, "Stop laughing." I'm like, "It's too funny." But the way to that place, my grandmom, instead of taking the correct route, which is the fastest route, she took what her GPS told her to do, and it was all the way around the island. So we spent basically the whole day in the fucking rental car. I was like, "Oh my god, why are we I'm missing so much time right now." And she's like, "What are you complaining about? You're on your Instagram back there." I'm like, "Hold on a second. We've been 8 hours in a car after a 12-hour plane ride, and you're asking me why I'm complaining." She's like, "We'll get there when we get there." And the whatever it was, shaved ice, that was pineapple flavor stick, and it's going to be amazing. I was like, "I don't care at this point. I just want to take a piss." That's my worst experience.
I've got a second worst experience, actually. I've just remembered from you saying that. So we went
Take
to
a piss,
India.
reminded something?
No, it wasn't that. It was the
Oh.
traveling. Yeah, so when we went to India, we basically, my parents' mother was living out there at the time, helping out at this hotel, or this small B&B, really. It wasn't a hotel. And we went out there. She planned this day for us where we'd be going down the backwaters in a boat, and she showed us a picture of the boat and stuff. She had it all booked. It was a really nice looking boat. It had lunch provided, all this sort of stuff. It was absolutely amazing. And we turned up, and it was just like this guy sat in a canoe, and he was taking us around these backwaters. And yeah, there was definitely some false advertising going on there, because it was basically like just filthy tiny rivers around the backs of people's houses and stuff. And
You're just
we
in
all sat there.
somebody's front yard taking pictures of a gutter, and the guy's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It's like, he said it's nature.
Yeah, it was not a very professional trip for the guy, but he must be making a killing. He must get so many bookings. And we cancelled like halfway through. We were going down this river and sort of like complaining and stuff that all these low hanging branches whacking us on the head. And we just said to him, like, "So when's lunch?" He was like, "You don't get lunch on this trip." And we said, "All right then. So how much longer have we got?" We've been on it for like over an hour and a half with a 5-month-old baby. My partner's grandparent, her granddad, and her mum. And he was just like, "Oh, we'll probably be doing it for about another 3 hours." We jumped ship
Yeah,
right then and there.
I was like, "Look, I need a granola bar. I need a thing of trail mix. I need something, especially when you're diabetic." Like, I know my cousin's always like
Oh yeah,
checking his blood sugar levels, doing all that type of stuff. And I remember he had to stick a needle in his ass at one point during like the tour bus ride we were on, which I don't know why he does it sometimes, then he doesn't have to do it most of the time. But I remember like that whole, like, that was his first time ever going to Vegas. So this is really his first time traveling away from his parents, because he's a little bit younger than me, 6 months. But me and him have completely different lifestyles. Like, I'm more of like, I go out and do whatever. I'm on, water slides, all that type of stuff. It took him forever to finally get on a water slide. He's just really kind of sheltered because of the diabetes thing. His parents didn't want him to go to school. Good kid and all. Good kid, love him to death. But we went when we were going and taking a ride up to the Hoover Dam and everything, taking a ride up to the Grand Canyon. When it was me and him, it a lot of the bickering and fighting that we were doing, it was a lot of fun though. Like, all those moments, like when you're traveling and stuff, and you consider like, this is the worst. I can't believe this is happening. This is ruining our vacation. They actually turn out to be moments you look back on and laugh at the hardest.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, my first travel nightmare that I described with the woodland cult sort of scenery. I mean, yeah, we definitely talk about that now. And because neither of us got dismembered and eaten by cannibals, it
You
was hilarious.
explained freaking Chernobyl. That's what you did to me. If you ever seen the movie Chernobyl, whatever, Diaries or whatever it is called, where they're stuck
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
like, it's nighttime and then you hear things back, that would scare the shit out of me. Imagine
Oh my,
spending a
yeah.
night in Chernobyl.
Man, it was like something straight out of a horror film. It was like we were expecting some backwoods hillbillies to come out with shotguns or something. I mean, one of the first things I thought, I was looking at were like these trees. So we were in a bowl as well, and these trees were like on a gradient going up, and I was just thinking, there's got to be a sniper in the trees or something, waiting for an animal to turn up and start feeding on this cow.
What's one place you would never want to visit?
Ooh, man, that's a tricky one because
You want to go everywhere.
Yeah, I think I do. I wouldn't be able to just like I don't have a knee-jerk response for that one. How about yourself?
I'm trying to think because I don't want to say fuck New York, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of it. I had a really bad
Oh,
experience when I went. It was really cold. I lost a glove. I was a little boy and I lost a glove. So it was really impactful for me. And it was really weird because it was around Christmas time. So, like, my grandmom knew how upset I was that I lost a glove. I mean, I was like 6 or 7, so this was a big deal to me. I was like, "Oh my god, you just bought me these and I lost it. I don't know what's." And then for Christmas, I got the other glove back, like the same glove. Like I was like, "Oh, Santa got me my." That was a good part on them, but I know she went to the fucking store and just bought another pair of gloves. Like I knew it was that type of thing. But like, it's just really hard because like when I went to New York, it was really loud. I understand why people wear headphones there, and I think through figuring out like why it was really hard for me to breathe. Like it seemed like the air was super thick, and that was just probably because of the dense population. I worked with a
mm,
few people that are from New York City, you know, the accents and everything. They're always smoking cigarettes, and I'm like, you know, like that's not good for you. And he goes, "We're from New York." And I realized what he meant by that was the fact that there's a thing called brake dust. And when the brake dust goes up in the air, you're breathing that in. So they actually check the lungs of like a person that lived in New York for like 40 something years. And they checked the inside of his lungs, not of the cigarette damage, but the amount of brake dust that he had inhaled had actually ruined his lungs.
hmm. Oh, you imagine like the pollution in New York, and it sticks to surfaces and stuff. You know, like all the concrete walls and everything, all the skyscrapers, that's absolutely covered in it.
Yeah, I look at the fact that like when we talk about conservation or stuff, like I want these things to be around for everyone to be able to see. I mean, the first time I went to Hawaii compared to the second time I went to Hawaii was two completely different experiences because the first time I went, we went to this fish reserve. Hey,
Hello.
hold on a second. I look at like the fact like with conservation and stuff, like we're completely tearing up this planet. Like I mean, like it's no tomorrow. And I know everybody's trying their best to be hip and oh, take care of the earth and stuff. But I think what the main thing is that we're overpopulated, obviously, but it's the factor of like, I mean, how many times do you go by somewhere as that you used to walk by as a little kid and it's completely changed? Like as a little kid, I can walk down I mean, like back in the day, like walk down a street or something, and there was like this small town, nice DVD rental place. We used to get these horror movies, and when our parents would go out of town and just watch these movies that we're not supposed to be watching, and then now like that's all torn down. It's now just completely business, corporate stores. I mean, there's an Apple and a Verizon. I was like, there's no freaking way this place, like it used to be old and historical, the bricks, all that, the moss, nope, they cleaned it all up, made it like completely different. I'm like, I love that nostalgia feel, and I don't feel nostalgic in my own town. I mean, I went to Hawaii the first time compared to the second time, completely different. There's a national fish reserve known as Hanama Bay. I recommend if you go to Hawaii, check that out. um, they give you a video, they show you this is a fish preservation place, you're going to see a lot of amazing fish and a lot of amazing coral, please respect it. But all the tourists don't really understand what they mean by respecting the coral, so they stand on it. Eventually that coral dies. And the second time we went to the fish reserve, we had to go so far out because all the coral, and like where we went in the beginning the first time we went, it was all dead, there were no fish, so we had to go even farther out. And it's just going to keep going. I bet if you go now, it's completely different. I mean, my cousins live out there, and besides, they speak a language called Pidgin. I'm gonna warn you, you will not know what the fuck they're saying. My cousin, I couldn't understand a damn word. I'm like, what are you saying to me right now? He's like, I'm full on aloha, thank you. I'm like, are you hungry? Do you want to get a burger? And he's like, I'm full on aloha, thank you. I'm like, I don't know what that means, so I'm going to order you a double. And then you eat it if you want it, or leave it on the table and we can just go from there. But yeah, but I mean, it's an amazing experience. I recommend anybody that really wants to travel. I mean, that's one of my plans that I really want to do, is because I don't see a lot of the world staying in good condition. I see it just going to keep everything's just going to keep getting moved. We're going to see less and less and less. And I feel like for our kids, our grandkids, it's just going to be difficult for them to experience things that we used to experience, like a nice
Mm.
bonfire, or like I mean, just an amazing crackling of wood in a fire. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, but what you just said about sort of nature reserves. I find it's quite upsetting that we have nature reserves picked out, and that basically is an allowance for nature, for humanity to encroach everywhere but there. And rather than kind of trying to expand these reserves and have as much space as possible for nature, we have these very small parts that are protected, so that if needs be, we can sort of creep closer and closer and develop more society, which on one hand definitely needs to happen. We are going through this population crisis. And everyone has a right to live. Everyone has a right to reproduce. I mean, I have 2 children. That's definitely where we're stopping. We're not having any more, because I feel like the human population, it does need to stem at this point. It's getting too much for the planet to withstand. But where I grew up, it's more of a case of, so it was really old fashioned, and modern day hit it, and there was a population boom. So all that's happened is everything stayed the same. So the town is pretty much the same. But you've got like estates just popping up everywhere, housing estates just popping up here, there, all over the place, and they're all commercial. So people don't like own their homes there. They're all like these really sort of weird toy towns and stuff. So from my perspective, it's more like, I drive down the road now that as recent as like 2 years ago, there's like 200 homes by the side of the road, but that was all just rolling fields. Well, that was sort of woodland who was owned by a farmer, and they've just destroyed that to make way for this housing. And yeah, so it's hard to argue, because it's the place that you know or knew, and then it's, you know, it's got to be utilized for people to live in.
I mean, my buddy lives out probably a good couple miles away from me. Like, I live in the beach part of the town. He lives more out towards the country, where there's like, well, there was a lot of trees. Now it's like they built these community homes that look just like the one beside it. I mean, you literally, I got lost. I swear to you, I am not an idiot. I know my directions. I know GPS, but me and him went skateboarding one night, and we went into this back little corner park to go take, it's like a shortcut to get to the store. They have exactly the same homes on every single lane, and it is about 15 miles of just this area. And if we cut it in half, it's like 2 miles to the store instead of taking the long ass way around. We got lost. I found out there's a water park back there. I had no freaking clue. I was like, where are we? He's like, dude, I live here, like outside of here, obviously, but not in this community. But I have no clue where we're at. I'm like, so what are we going to do? He's like, figure a way out. Every time we kept coming back, it's like the same shit. I'm like, we've been here before. He's like, no, we haven't. I'm like, I've seen that sign 6 fucking times. There's no way there's 10 water parks here. That's one water park. And he's just like, dude, I'm telling you, it's left. Next thing you know, we're back to where we started. It felt like I was in like a freaking paradox or the Twilight Zone. I was like, how do we get home? I just want to call my mom and have her pick me up, because I'm freaking scared. I'm 20 at the time, so that's a big thing for me.
Absolutely, yeah. Standardized sort of architecture is it's pretty freaky. Like you said, when you're driving around the areas that every single house looks the same. They've got the same little patch of grass out front, all sorts of stuff like that. I find it very peculiar, and it doesn't have much character to it. And what's more is you're in areas like that. So what they'll do is they'll create these gardens and stuff, and they'll monoculture with the crops, or they'll say introducing nature into the areas. So they might set up like plant beds and stuff, so you've like got wood chippings and bushes in it and all that, and it's like they're very much controlling the plants that are in there. So you're not introducing any nature, even though it gives like the illusion that this is a green space as well as a living space. You've monocultured it. You're reducing the amount of creatures that are going to frequent it, and yeah, it's really unfortunate. It does have a massive impact on the environment.
I see. I like the idea, and I understand the business behind it of when it comes to retail and making money to go back into the economy, building stores that are needed so people don't have to travel super far. I get that. But at my buddy's place, like, they leveled all these miles and miles and acres of trees just to build community homes that are empty. And I'm like, hold on a second. If we have empty homes that are just sitting here that nobody's buying, how the fuck is there a homeless population problem? Like, can we just not do a thing where we have to, help them get a job, and then for 6 months they get to live in one of these places until they're able to make enough money to afford their own place? Like, can we not do this type of standardized living? I mean, we have empty homes. We might as well fill them with people that are sleeping on the streets. Like, I came across a homeless man in Hawaii, and he was literally like, I choose to be like this. And I'm like, why? He's like, the weather's always 70 degrees. You never really have to worry about much. I'm an expert minimalist. I'm like, what do you fucking mean you're an expert minimalist? He's like, that's what homeless people are. We're expert minimalists. I'm like, wow, that is really looking at the cup as half full there. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's pretty
Well,
funny.
yeah.
I swear to you, they were talking. It was a couple of homeless people. Best curbs, they were pointing them out in which neighborhoods. They were marking them on a map, which have the best curbs. I'm like, no fucking way this is happening right now. Like, these guys are talking about the best curbs and neighborhoods to sleep in.
I mean, they obviously are happy being homeless, but like the case for lots of homeless people is definitely not by choice, and a lot of them don't live in Hawaii. So yeah, I think the fact that new houses are being built all the time by companies that require you to have a sort of a stable income, and they require you to make regular payments and stuff, and in some cases never actually own the home. So you've like um, rent to own. So you rent the house, and then over time you slowly buy off the house. But as the economy changes, the part of the house that you haven't bought yet, that percentage is constantly changing. So you could really have like a down section of the economy. You could lose your job because of that. The economy's gone bad, so your house price has shot way up. And then, you haven't got a job to back that up. I mean, people are on 0-hour contracts who are essentially week to week hoping to get a full-time week of like standard pay, so 37 hours here.
It's like
That just
throwing your
can't.
money in a hole and it just never fills up.
Exactly. It's like buying a car, and you shouldn't have to feel like that about buying a house somewhere that you're going to live. You haven't got to feel like it might be pulled out from under your feet. But it always comes down to money, doesn't it?
That's just, it's a crappy way of living. I would look at it. Like, I mean, I look at people that don't have a lot or don't have a lot of money and don't really have a need to want a lot of money. Like, I never want to be super rich. I don't want anything like that, because I feel like it just brings corrupt power. And then you start to notice when you start having money, how easily you spend it. Like, it's
Mm.
really hard to correct yourself. Like, I mean, back from when, let's say you have $1,000 in the bank, a $2 or $3 purchase for an energy drink or something is like, oh, I can't do that. I can go over here for cheaper. So you have to drive like maybe across town to get something cheaper. Then you start having like 20, let's say you have 20 grand in the bank. Next thing you know, you're like, $10 for an energy drink, and toss it out of your pocket. It's like, it's really hard to correct yourself when that starts happening. And I look at like someone like Bill Gates that has billions of dollars, and I'm like, how the fuck are you not just spending it like Johnny Depp does, where he's just
Mm.
home after home after home? I mean, Johnny Depp owns a whole neighborhood except one house on it. And you know what he tried to do, since that guy wouldn't sell his house? He built a little like statue that is basically a middle finger to the guy who owns the house. It's just straight up pointed at his house. I was like, that's Johnny Depp money.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And you look at people like Bill Gates and don't own a gold chain, don't own any Gucci or anything like that. And then you look at other people who are a fraction of how much he's worth. And yeah, like you said, they just spend their money wherever, however. And a lot of it, if you have a certain amount of money, if people know you have a certain amount of money, there are industries that cater to that. There are industries that offer the same service, but just like much flashier. And they'll reach out to you and they say, well, hey, you've got this much money now. Don't take your car to that garage. We'll come to your house. We'll pick it up. We'll take it to this one, and we'll give you a much better service. And there's definitely like fingers try to go in pockets like the second that people get money. It's just this constant sort of revolution that we're living through. It just keeps on going round and round. That the money's moving, and it doesn't matter who's got it, but everyone's trying to get their hands on it.
Usually I ask people, like, what do they do professionally? But, like, I mean, across from your Instagram page, like, what do you do professionally, though?
Um, I won't actually give you my sort of job role. My job is based in safety. It's a legal position.
Oh, that's fine.
So
That
I've
you
got,
don't have to go any farther into it. I was just
yeah.
wondering, because I feel like you would be a great person, just like your Instagram page, where you're really promoting the education and the beauties and wonders of all these places. Like, have you ever thought about making like a documentary trying to spotlight some of these things? Like, I feel like there are plenty of travel blogs out there, obviously, but I mean, half the time
Yeah.
they're not very believable and real. I prefer something like what Anthony Bourdain did, where he went to all these places and he showed you the grime and he showed you all like the kind of the bad times and stuff. Like sometimes you want to go up to a hotel and be like, hey, can I get a spot here? Oh, it's $6,000. Well, it looks like you're staying in a
Mm.
1-star bedroom. I would love to see a documentary where a person's traveling to like the most beautiful place, but he's staying in a shitty like hotel with a glory hole in the side door.
Well, in Cornwall, so we've got, like I said, just tons of beautiful beaches. And I feel like a lot of people they feel that they're in England. There's not a lot of exciting wildlife, and it's on their doorstep. It's right there, and we have a huge a tourist business around here. So like Cornwall makes its money from tourism. And it's just really important to, you get loads of people flood down to Cornwall, they take beautiful pictures of the beaches and stuff, but oftentimes they don't take pictures of, I've done on my Instagram where glass in rock pools. And you can't point fingers because it could be a local person, but it happens more in the summer than it does in the winter. There are more people going to the beaches, there are more people coming to Cornwall, and people don't have the same respect for it because it's not where they live. So they might go to the beach in the evening, drink their drink. They might not even be throwing it at the rocks, but they leave their glass bottle on a rock and it falls into the sea and it gets smashed. And the last thing you want is for that to affect not just the people who are using these rock pools to find animals and stuff, but the animals inside them as well. It can have a real heavy impact. And yeah, it's like a slither of wildlife that we have. England is pretty notorious for having decimated all of its wildlife. Like once upon a time had wolves, boars, bears, all sorts of crazy stuff, and that's all gone. So the coast and the waters around us is where we harbour all of our wildlife, and we need to try as hard as we can to maintain that and to sustain it.
My town, a lot of people are posting pictures of it right now because it's experiencing severely hard times with protests, riots, and it's just everybody's been locked down for so long. It's a way to kind of, I mean, we're a huge tourist town. COVID really, I mean, we make all our money in the summer. I mean, this is where business is open, but we couldn't open until later in the summer than we would like to. So now we're experiencing like the middle kind of summer and we're way kind of behind. We didn't get any of the J1 students, any of the foreign kids that come down here that want to work and make money. So a lot of businesses are hurting and closing, but we're also getting kids from Baltimore, Washington, D.C., New York, Vermont, all these other places, Pennsylvania, that are all coming down here. And they're our age, but they don't understand the beauties that kind of me and you see with the land. We have a sign that says, please leave only your footprints, because people used to be able to smoke on the beach and they would toss their cigarette butts into the sand. But like every night I'm looking on this Facebook page of just the whole town. There's like a town Facebook page. They pizza boxes everywhere, all over our boardwalk, all over the ground, litter everywhere, trash, graffiti, everything. I'm like, man, like just I don't even think like I could be that pissed off to litter like that. Like, I mean, I guess I was at one point, I was pretty bad at like, oh, just tossing like a wrapper out the window or something. But then I just made a plastic bag in my car and use it as a trash bag.
My pockets are always full of rubbish. The rubbish that I've produced, and there's not a bin nearby, I shove it in my own pocket. But yeah, if I'm walking around and I see rubbish about, I definitely pick that up and put it in my pocket if I don't have a bag with me. I frequently take my children rock pooling with me because it's really important to educate them on what we have surrounding us. That's one of the reasons why I created my Instagram page, is because there's all this sort of stuff and people aren't coming down to Cornwall, so I thought I'd give them an insight into what we're finding, and teach them about what's around and stuff, and also make the point that we're out there doing litter picks. We do, even if it's just a 5-minute beach clean, it has a positive impact. But the sad thing is that we actually have to do that. We shouldn't have to go around and pick up all this stuff because it's probably more effort to throw that away or something than it is just to stuff it back in the bag and chuck it in the bin whenever you can.
I think it's just the fact, like when you're on vacation, you don't really care about what you do to the place because you don't live there. Like, I
Mm.
mean, I always look at like, imagine taking a bottle you know, somebody just tossing it into the beach or something. What happens if you just drank the bottle and then toss it in your room? Eventually that's going to clutter up and it's going to create a mess where you can't even live. I mean, I think we all have trails through our room that we walk. We keep the path clear, I would say, and put the clothes on the side or on a chair or something. You know, our room's kind of messy at times, but I'm like, it's so simple just to pick up after yourself. It's like making your bed. People always talk about make your bed first thing in the morning. I make my bed first thing every single morning. The whole fucking room looks clean. If it's not made, the whole room looks dirty. It's an illusion, some David Copperfield shit, but it works, and I feel good throughout my day. Like, I'm starting my day off, I'm like, I made my bed today. I did something. I accomplished, you know, whole day could go to crap. But I think it's the same thing what we can kind of take into the world. Like, just spend more time, like, getting people involved in the nature. It's going to want you to care more about it. I mean, I took a hike through my brother's girlfriend's house, or I guess fiance now, but in Baltimore. It was like this little trail. She's like, we're gonna go on a trail. I'm like, a fucking trail? Like, we're in a small community, a trail. Okay, I've been on trails in my area. There's nothing ever super extraordinary. Like in Ocean City here, what we do is we can just take a trail and then go crabbing or something, toss some chicken X into the water and just pull up some crabs. That's fun. But I'm like, I've been on a trail. It's a couple minute walk, whatever. We go on this trail, dude. I swear to God, I was also high. I'm going to add that in there. This is back when the high school days. But it felt like it lasted 5 hours. Like, I was like, where the fuck are we hiking to? Like, I had no clue. And we get back there and there's a waterfall, dude. I'll send you a picture of it. I put on my Instagram. But I was like, holy crap, there's a waterfall? She's like, yeah. Because I used to come here all the time as a little kid. I'm like, you fucking live next to a waterfall? She's like, you live right next to the beach. You know how amazing that is to me? I'm like, oh, I guess that is pretty cool. But I'm like, have you ever thought about jumping off the waterfall? And she's like, no, because there's a foot of water down there. I'm like, just don't dive. Go knee first.
Yeah, just lose your legs. You don't need those. Got two of them.
Straight up knees to the chest.
Yeah, cannonball like God. Yeah, I mean, so many people don't see stuff like that. Like, you know, when they live next to stuff. I'm always amazed where I live. I feel really blessed to live where I live, because I mean, surrounding me, I've got a beach 5 minutes in one direction. I mean, yesterday I ran to the beach. It's the biggest beach in the town, and that was a 20-minute run. And then you just go straight in the sea from there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I did live on an estate for a little bit. Lived in a city. It's not a big city because it's Cornwall, but yeah, you definitely get an appreciation of other places when you leave them. So I think if you were to move somewhere else, into mountains or something, it'd be pretty cool. But that would wear off, and you'd probably miss the sea.
Have you ever had a clear moment, like just in nature, where it's like you're just sitting there and you're like, this is what life is. Like, this is it. I don't want this moment to ever leave, ever. I mean, I used to do jet skis in my town. So I used to be on the water constantly. I mean, 7 hours a day. I mean, sometimes even 12, depending on how many trips we had. But like from as soon as 6 a.m. when the morning starts to 6 p.m. when that sun's going down, I would see the beautiful orange in the morning coming across the water, some nice ponies on the beach. I'd be driving right by and see them. I mean, you could stick your hand out and hit the mist with your hand. Those moments I fucking think about so much. Every time I cross the bridge into my town, I'm like, I jet skied here. And then on those nights back, when you're taking that last trip back, and instead of orange in the morning that you would see, at night you would see red. And it's a completely different experience. It was in the air, like it tingles. It's like, I love storms. I love falling asleep to rain outside of my window. I'll sit on the floor in my garage with the lights off and just have when it's raining and have it just hit just to hear that noise. But the tingling in the air, that sensation you get where it's like, this is what the perfect moment is. This is where life makes sense.
Yeah, I get that sensation probably a lot. I mean, if I'm down at the beach, sort of sea air, I do a lot of walking in my work. I go to a lot of places to do a lot of walking. And yeah, I go to some really beautiful places. I start work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and at the minute that's around about when the sun's coming up. So you've like just got these beautiful seascapes, beautiful landscapes, and the sun's coming up over it, and there's no one around. You've got the birds singing, waves crashing, stuff like that. And I really feel like so many people are so immersed in the technological life that they live, that they don't take the time to appreciate things like that and realize that nature is everything. You know, if nature deteriorates too much, or if ecosystems crumble around us, if we drain the world of its nutrients because we're focusing more on making the next iPad, or having a better Android phone in our hand or something like that, you know, that's not going to count for anything. You can't eat your phone. So I think a lot of people need to connect to nature more, to get an idea of what really matters.
You just gave me the best idea. If someone offered me $1 million, I would go to Hawaii, and when they have the selfie sticks where someone's taking a selfie with the thing, and also if someone's taking a picture with their phone, I just want to grab it and fucking chuck it. Be like, you just see somebody staring at the actual picture rather than staring at the thing. I'm like, take a couple pictures, put it in your pocket to remember it, but also don't sit there and videotape the whole damn thing. Like, that gets me. I'm like, are you like people that do that at concerts? They're videotaping the concert so I can see it later. I'm like, you're never going to look back on it. And also, you're missing it with your own eyes right now. Like, you're
And if
just
you're stood behind them, you're seeing the show twice.
Yeah.
I've had that before.
Fuck.
Yeah, very off-putting.
Oh, I just want to take the phone or take this. Imagine, selfie stick was the worst invention. I get it. It was a big trend. People still do it. I had one for my GoPro, but man, I mean, I like taking GoPro videos and filming that stuff when I was in the ocean, catch a nice barrel wave, and see some stuff. But like being immersed in it too, because you're too worried about the shot. You're too worried about taking the photo, making it perfect, or doing whatever, adding your Instagram. My little cousin took an Instagram picture of a sunset and sat there editing the whole thing while the sunset was going down. I'm like, you're missing this. You're missing this. You're missing this. Did you add the saturation? Because guess what? You're missing this. And he's just sitting there. He's like, but it's going to be cool. My Instagram, I'll get so many likes. I just like wanted to slap the shit out of him so hard. I'm like, you hear that noise? That is the foam of the ocean rolling up on the sand right now. Like, just focus in on that. Listen to that. And it brings up a good question that I've had. It's going to make me sound like a stoner. I don't do it anymore. I've done it in years. Okay. I swear.
Disclaimer.
But when you grab a shell and you put your ear up to it and you say, hear the ocean, do you think that is just a reverberation or echo of just the hollowness of the shell? Or do you think that it's a shell that's been smashed and crushed by the ocean waves so many times that literally the sound has imprinted its memory into the shell? That is a stoner thought.
That completely depends on whether you picked that shell up on the beach and you stood right next to the sea.
Fuck, I didn't even think of that.
So many people pick up shells and I'm like, you can hear the ocean. I'm like, I'm stood right here. I can hear the ocean. Thanks for it though. Because I don't know if you've ever picked up like a garden snail shell. You don't get that.
You just blew my fucking mind. You're standing right next to the ocean. No wonder you can hear the I can't believe I didn't even think of that one. Wow. 22. And I figured that out. Oh my God. That's like when I found out when I was 20 that Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson weren't the same person. Yeah, that was a tough one for me, dude. Don't even like
that sounds tough.
They're like, what you just associated the MJs? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I thought, because, okay, so I'm turning this into a joke, but Michael Jordan came to my town when I was 20, about 2 years ago. The thing called a White Marlin opening, which is like a big fishing tournament. And this is just when the podcast was starting out. I was like, you know how cool it would be to get Michael Jordan on my podcast? I would ask him, what was it like to be the first NBA player with AIDS? And everyone in the room that I said that around just stared at me like, what the fuck did you just say? And I was like, yeah, he has AIDS. Like, imagine how hard that must have been, all the things to come over with. And they're like, that's Magic Johnson. I'm like, same guy? They're like, not the same guy. I'm like, fuck. I spent 20 years thinking the guy who made my all-time favorite movie, Space Jam, had AIDS. Can't take it back now.
It was a great film. So it must have been devastating news.
This is why I like you. You make me feel not so dumb, I would say.
Wow. I spend a lot of time with children.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm ending on that one. Hey, man, look, I appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast. I know it was a random thing, a DM and all, but I want you to be able to promote your Instagram page right now, share your links, everything, so people can find your content, be able to, look at the beautiful pictures you take.
Yeah, man, it's at Seascape Safari. If you want to give us a follow, definitely do that. And yeah, I'm just going to carry on posting, carry on giving you an insight into what I find on a daily basis and what me and my kids get up to and what we learn about the creatures around us and really, how you can go out and get involved. You can dive right in and learn loads of stuff, help nature. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.